Up next on the show, if it can happen to the mayor, it could happen to you too. As you've been hearing in the news, Thursday, Winnipeg's mayor and a security guard helped save a man who was overdosing on Main Street. Mayor Scott Gillingham says that he and his staff were finishing up work. When they looked out the window, they saw a man who was overdosing. Had overdosed. Luckily, members of City Council received Naloxone training 2 years ago, so Gillingham knew what to do. Here's a bit of him explaining what happened to CBC's Megan Ketchison.
We gave the individual 5 shots of Narcan nasal spray, and I gave one of the 5, and I also gave a needle of Naloxone to the individual. After the event was over, I asked the security guard, and he indicated he's probably had to do this 5 or 6 times over the last, since he's been here for a couple of years now. So it just speaks to the prevalence, I think, of the drug crisis that we have in our city. And as I was walking away from that incident, I was reminded that we have people working in agencies who work with Winnipeg's homeless population and our city's emergency service members who administer naloxone and reverse overdoses every day. And so for too many, people working with the addicted population, this is an everyday occurrence that they're intervening and reversing the effects of overdoses.
Caleb Clay is the administrative manager of Sunshine House's overdose prevention site and in studio with us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how often do you administer naloxone?
Well, at the MOP site, it really depends on the day. We can have a very calm, chill day where we thankfully don't have to administer any, or it can be, 3 to 5 is pretty standard for us, 3 to 5 folks a day.
What's the impact of that on people? On your staff, obviously not on the people that are struggling and overdosing, which is a different impact, but what's the impact?
Yeah, we are very fortunate to be in a position where we get to help people every single day. And all of us love our jobs and we love these people so much that we are grateful to do it. But it is difficult. It is a harrowing experience. And, not every overdose is easy enough to reverse with just Narcan. We often have to employ CPR techniques and rescue breathing as well. And that can take a lot out of a person, absolutely.
But as you said, you're saving a life. How concerned are you that the average Winnipegger might not know how to do this?
It is pretty concerning. I know more people now than ever know how to use naloxone, and that's really encouraging. But, folks can overdose in any neighborhood in any part of the city, and the more people who know how to use naloxone, the more lives will be saved.
What do you think the misconceptions are about naloxone and using it?
I think that there's fear of using naloxone, especially as the nasal spray is less and less available. Sticking a needle in somebody is always a strange experience to go into if you're not used to it. And I think people also worry that it will hurt people if they don't need it. But injecting naloxone into somebody, if they're not experiencing an opioid overdose, isn't going to do anything harmful.
What are the signs that someone is overdosing?
So the signs are slowed rate of breathing. That's how you can first tell when folks are breathing very shallowly. You can also look for discoloration around the lips and of the skin, though that's harder to see in people with darker skin tones. So we also use like pulse oximeters and things like that to monitor folks. But depressed rate of breathing, if you know somebody's been using and you're seeing them kind of start to like nod off as if they're going to sleep, then that can be a sign that they're going into overdose as well.
And can you administer it then, or are you waiting? Not waiting, but is there a wrong time to do this?
I would say for the average person, if you think somebody is overdosing and if you're able to get their consent, then you can always ask them, even when somebody's rate is slow and they're sort of starting to go down like that. Sometimes you can still talk to them. So you can always ask them if they'd like naloxone, or if you notice somebody's, slumped over on the side of the road, it's better to do it and try than to just leave them there.
How would you describe the drug crisis here in Winnipeg and where we're at?
Well, it's certainly a tough world out there for folks who use drugs. We're seeing more substances that we're not expecting in people's drug supplies than ever. And a lot of those substances have adverse side effects like benzodiazepines or xylazine. These are not things that people are supposed to be ingesting alongside opioids. And it makes for complex overdoses that take more than just Narcan to reverse.
How does that change the way that you respond to overdoses as a result of all of that?
We just have to be more careful, and we have to just know our folks, right? When people are hanging out around the MOPS site, it gives us an opportunity to build relationships with them. And so the more we know about their patterns of use and what they may be buying or expecting to consume, the better we can keep them safe.
Is your training like for the folks that you work with? Have you had to have everybody's getting more first aid, and have you changed your training because of that? Obviously the depth of the problem.
We make sure that everybody's up to date on their first aid and their CPR. We're starting to introduce oxygen administration with oxygen concentrators as well, because that's a bit of a kinder way to bring somebody back from an overdose. Narcan can be very jarring, and it's a really great tool to use, but because we're experts at this, we've been doing this for almost 2 years now. We are able to kind of put more tools in our toolbox.
What do you do with
training.
the oxygen? Just put it on someone's face? Or?
Yeah, as they're still breathing, we ask if they would like some oxygen so that they can potentially avoid using Narcan, and then you either get a mask or cannula and you sit with them for a while and chat, and they breathe easier.
I guess just last, Caleb, what do you think's needed to boost overdose prevention in Manitoba and maybe in Winnipeg? Because Manitoba's a pretty big question. But what about in the city?
In the city, I would recommend people get drug testing. Drug testing is one of the most powerful tools we have because that can tell you what's in your supply. There's a number of organizations around the city that do it. Sunshine House doesn't have the capability right now, but Nine Circles and Street Connections both do, and they have very experienced techs there who can tell you pretty down to a pretty small amount what's in your substances. So that's the biggest tool that we have in our toolbox right now. Better supports around like detox and rehabilitation for people who are ready for that or who want to take that step is always a good thing, and just more awareness. Drugs can be scary and they can be unsafe, but the more everybody knows about them and the more we kind of demystify them, I think the safer people will be overall.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for the work you do.
Thank you.
That is Caleb Clay, Administrative Manager of Sunshine House's overdose prevention site. If you want to read the story about the mayor and what happened that I mentioned there, you can go to our website.